Hey guys, welcome to the video. I think we need to really talk about something that's important right now. And there's so much discourse over game reviews these days. And remember what a game review is supposed to be, right? It's an opinion on how the person, the individual, played the video game, right? And I haven't seen backlash towards a review or a set of reviews like this in a long time. I'd have to go back to 2006 and when The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess got an 8.8 from GameSpot's Jeff Gertzman. I remember, telling my age here, of course, but I remember the discourse around that review because it's The Legend of Zelda. It's a series that's supposed to get all these immaculate, wonderful reviews, and GameSpot, of course, GameSpot, IGN, Game Informer, Electronic Gaming Monthly, One Up, whatever it is at the time. Those are the big magazines, and we didn't have anything like. I think Metacritic and stuff like that was around. I think we looked at gamer rankings and stuff like that for aggregated review scores, but that really wasn't looked at. It was always looked at oh my god, how could he not give Zelda a 9 or a perfect score? And there were people even still attacking some of the 9s that game received. And like I said, I haven't seen backlash to reviews since then. There's been some people that backlash to a video game Last of Us Part 2, things like that, but towards the actual review scores being in a negative light. And this is something that, look, it to me, at the end of the day, you can have fun being a fanboy. I get it. I take shots at Xbox and stuff like that. And I probably shouldn't, but at the same time, to me, I've always looked at it as I always was like a Nintendo kid versus Sega. And I was just always Sega's always Sega does what Nintendo don't, or they had Sonic and stuff like that. But, I was very prideful of, the fact that, I had, the Super Nintendo, and there were so many great games on that. And then I evolved into Nintendo 64, and I kind of was oh, I really don't care about the PlayStation. There's really nothing on it. And then I got a PlayStation, and I was like, oh, wow, there's so many games on here that the Nintendo 64 doesn't have. Still bought a GameCube. Got a PlayStation 2 eventually. Got a Wii. Wii was my first console from Nintendo, or I was just look at everybody else and what they're playing, and then look at what I'm playing over here. So, that's how that kind of changed for me, in a way. But I've always had fun. Having the fanboy battles, not necessarily going, oh wow, your game's absolute trash, yada yada yada. It's always been like that, kind of like that, just that little bit of back and forth, which I think that's okay. Especially if that you're joking, and people can tell that you're joking, and then and I see it from all sides. I think when it starts becoming your identity, that's when it's an issue. I think when you have let it cloud your judgment on how you view certain things, for just focusing on what you have, I'll be honest, it's I'm not a huge proponent of how Microsoft's doing their acquisitions. I don't play on Xbox, so that has no benefit towards me, but I can totally see why. As an Xbox fan, you're yeah, gobble them all up, get them all, because PlayStation can't have any, because, they've been keeping exclusives off our console for years. And it's yeah, hard to argue against that sometimes, because it's yeah, PlayStation does keep the exclusives off Xbox. So, hard to argue that. What I'm specifically talking about, though, is, and this goes for all sides, because I seen a little bit of Nintendo fanboys, but Nintendo's the most quiet fan ever. They're just we expect greatness, thank you, bye. And they're not wrong, right? I think Nintendo first party does still make the best games. I do think the quality of them in general has gotten a little bit less, or the amount has gotten a little bit less, but I don't think there's any argument when it comes to that. Just wish they would step in and help Game Freak out a little bit. They are a owner of Pokemon, so. But yeah, so this is, I really wanted to highlight some of the things that I've seen. So first and foremost, I have not played Starfield, so my opinion of the game, I'm not going to give you one because I don't have one, right? I could tell you that I've not been particularly impressed by what I have seen trailer-wise, but most of the time, trailers don't impress me anymore anyway, unless it's like a hype trailer, right? Hype trailers, I'm like, and I'm not even impressed by those. I'm just like, yay, finally, you announced it. Looks awesome, looks great. Wasn't too impressed with the Spider-Man 2 trailer. It looks like more Spider-Man. Okay. Will I enjoy it? Probably, yeah. Baldur's Gate 3, which I've been playing. Was I impressed by the trailers? No, not at all. Until you get into the game, I think that's when you really can really kind of start diving in on certain things. But when it comes to, Bethesda games in general, right? I particularly used to enjoy Bethesda games before Fallout 4, right? Fallout 4 was a game that I particularly did not like after I was extremely hyped for it. I felt it was it didn't evolve anything, right? And I should say my history. So I have played Oblivion. I have played New Vegas, which is my favorite by far. I have played Skyrim, of course, 13,000 times. Fallout 4, I don't know if I said Fallout 3, but Fallout 3. And then I played a little bit of Morrowind, right? I didn't play the classics or anything like that. The top-down isometric style, I'm still getting used to. Would I like to revisit them? Sure. Absolutely. I played and enjoyed Fallout 3. I never beat it. I never had a reason to go after the ending. Like, I always love exploring and doing my own thing, and I know that's what Bethesda games are about. It's like that sense of wonder. It's like, what's over in that direction? Same thing with, like, Skyrim. I think I beat the final boss in Skyrim. I'm pretty sure. Alduin, whatever. Pretty sure I beat him at one point in time on like PS3 version, PS4 version, special edition, or anything like that, or Game of the Year or whatever. I have stayed away from main story. I've been doing, Danger Quest and things like that. Fallout New Vegas, beat it so many times. That one was just so engrossing. I had to know what's the multiple endings. What do we got here? What happens when I side with Mr. House? What happens when I take over from Mr. House? What happens when I, side with the NCR or the Legion or anything like that? Let me go to the Brotherhood of Steel and just bomb their entire base, nuke the entire base. See what happens there. Just so much fun in that game. And I think I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just because I felt like I had more sense of freedom what was going on, or maybe because it wasn't so black and white like some other games are. Where I did feel like I had a sense of more morality and things like that, or I could be more evil, so to speak, and it still actually had an effect on the story. And then we go to Fallout 4. Fallout 4, I think because I was looking for more of the New Vegas style, I didn't get it, right? So I was really pumped for Fallout 4. I got the Pip-Boy edition. I was pumped. Like, my Pip-Boy edition got delayed by like 5 days, so I went out and bought another copy of Fallout 4 just so I could play Fallout 4 on the day of release. And I was so mad. I was so disappointed. And I put probably 35, 45 hours into the game. And I know that there's some people that are, and we're going to get to time frames in a minute, but I was just very disappointed in the overall. Would I still play it? Yeah, probably. There's still some charm there, but there's some things there that I think it forces on you. The settlement stuff was really, I didn't like that at all. And I just felt like your freedom, it wasn't as much as freedom as it was in some of the other Bethesda games. Fallout 76. I didn't play it at launch, so I don't know how bad it was. I kind of enjoyed it when I played it a little bit last year. And it's definitely something that I think you should play with friends. I know that on launch and for like 2 years after launch, it was destroyed by a lot of people. And I didn't play it because of how sour Fallout 4 left a taste in my mouth. So I didn't play it, and then I saw the reviews. I was like, ooh, that's not good. And then everybody flipped out over a bag that you were supposed to get with it. Like, Bethesda games have a history of, if it doesn't launch with the fanfare that it's supposed to, it's a very loyal group, and they will let you know if they don't like it, but they'll also let you know if they don't like you not liking their stuff. Right? Does that make sense? And I don't think what I'm gonna show or get into is Bethesda fans for the most part. I think what we're dealing with is Xbox fans, and I think that's where there is a difference, because Bethesda fans are very critical of Bethesda, like 100%, and I think that's where Dan Stapleton is coming from, is as a Bethesda fan, right? So people want to go, all right, so let's do more reviews by Dan Stapleton, okay? So let's look at his history of reviews. And so he has been with IGN for a long time, right? And people want to nitpick and cherry pick like a Mass Effect Andromeda review and things like that, right? But here's my question. So Gears Tactics, right? Gears Tactics review. What did he give Gears Tactics? Because if he has an Xbox bias, he is going to give Gears Tactics a lower score, right? And he gave it an 8. Would you say an 8 it's a bad score? I don't think so. Jedi Survivor getting a 9. I mostly agree with Jedi Survivor getting a 9. I would give Jedi Survivor an 8.5, personally. Is there a way to aggregate these to like just scores only? I guess not. So I don't think there is a bias there. I get that he's made some comments similar to the comments that I just made, where I don't think the acquisitions that Microsoft is doing is very... I personally don't think it benefits anybody but an Xbox player, right? And I know that like, oh, we're making it so that you can play the game anywhere, but it's still through Xbox, it's still using their controller, still using their ecosystem. I don't like it. I don't like achievements. I don't like that stuff. Like, it's taking away from the ecosystem that I choose to play my games on. So yeah, it's not exactly the best, in my opinion, right? But why wouldn't he review this? He reviewed The Outer Worlds. So The Outer Worlds, a game that I'm very familiar with wanting to play, because it is, it's they made Fallout New Vegas, right? And he gave it an 8.5. So, like, obviously, he has a history with reviewing some of these games. Now, my question is how much of a history? So, is he the one that reviewed 76 for it? So he did Rage 2. Rage 2 is another game from Bethesda, right? You know, it's made by id, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see what he did here. So, Rage 2, which I heard really good things about. He gave an 8. Once again, it's a very Avalanche Studios. Maybe it's not made by Bethesda, or released by Bethesda, but yeah, Square Enix. Okay, see, I was wrong on that. See, I thought maybe they did the first one. I don't know. I know Rage and id. I thought they had a thing. So, anyway, so we go here. Let's see. Prey review. I know that he did a Prey review, and then he did updated for patch. And I know that he did an Andromeda review. Andromeda he gave a 7. He gave Watch Dogs 2 review, PlayStation VR review, PlayStation VR Worlds. Alright, Fallout 4 Nuka World DLC review. So did he do Fallout 4? So he did the review for the DLC. Alright, so he did the Fallout 4 review. So if he did the Fallout 4 review, why wouldn't he do the actual review for Starfield? And look what he gave Fallout 4. A 9.5, right? Would I agree with that? No. Fallout 4 is maybe a 7.5 to 8 at best, in my opinion. But, look. He gave it a 9.5. Now, people are going to say, well, he gave this a 9.5 because it was available on everything, right? Because it was available on everything is why he gave it a 9.5. And it's like, okay, so I understand that, but can I show you something real quick? What did he play Starfield on? Because when you go to Starfield's Metacritic, right? Xbox Series X, with how it's registered, right? If you played it on the X, reviewed it for the X, and that's what you played it on, your review file's under here, right? So it should be under here if you played it on the X, right? Well, no, because he didn't. Right? There's your GameSpot, your Digital Trends, your PC Mag, and your Mirror Station reviews. He played it on PC. Right? So my question is somebody who's probably played Bethesda games, and you can see it's right here. Where is it at? There we go. Right here. So you can see that to me doesn't equate, right? If you're playing it on PC anyway, which is probably what he played Fallout 4 on, because I know Bethesda's known for not giving codes out for a video game beforehand, and we're going to get to that in a minute too. But Bethesda, like for Fallout 4, didn't give people review codes, so you had to like kind of play what you played on. So I don't know if he played on PC. I'm not sure what he played on when it comes to this. I do know that he played the other one on PC. So, did he play this on PlayStation? Which I would advise you never to play a Bethesda game on PlayStation if you're going to review it for that, because we know historically that they just didn't do well on PlayStation, running-wise. So, Fallout 4's performance on both consoles is tolerable but sometimes disappointing. We've seen frequent frame rate slowdowns. The PC version has been much smoother in that regard, running between 60 and FPS, maintaining when I lowered only the anti-aliasing settings. But at no point did I encounter anything that halted my progress or dampened my enthusiasm. So I guarantee you he played on PC, right? So he gave Fallout 4 from Bethesda a 9.5, so I don't think there's a bias towards Bethesda, and I don't think there's a bias towards Xbox, because he's given Xbox exclusives 8s and 9s before, right? So I don't understand the discourse behind one person giving a 7, right? Because he wasn't the only person that gave it a low rating. PC Games N, they gave it a 70. Games.cz, 70. Gamer No, 70. Here's the issue I have, is that am I going to take... You can take the bottom ones out, right? And it's like, okay, but IGN Japan gave it a 100. Okay, and that's their opinion, though, right? Like, that's the thing that I don't get, is at the end of the day, these are all opinions. And these guys are getting death threats for that. But, like, if you go to Xbox Addict 100, right? Washington Post gave it a 100. I've read his review, and to me, his review doesn't equate to a 100, because he even states that it takes a while for this game to get started. I've always said that's a hindrance to a video game, but that's his opinion. He says that it more than makes up for it, yet you listen to Kind of Funny's review, and Blessing Adier Jr. pretty much goes, I really wanted to rate this game as a 2, but I gave it a 3 because of the stuff on the back end. It was a little bit better. And people are still like, hey, you know, I see you're playing it more. Has your opinion changed? He's like, my opinion of my review hasn't changed. Like, it's still a fun game. And that's the thing that I don't think people get, right? Name a game that you've enjoyed that didn't get the score that you wanted, right? And that's the situation that a lot of these things are in. Game Informer gave it an 8.5. Like I think that Game Informer is, like, happy that these other places gave it a 7 or even lower. Because they would probably have been looked at for it, right? And I'm just like, that's just kind of how it is. like this look like Steve Orr, right? He's the one that they kind of always bring up, like PlayStation fans I guess got mad or whatever. And he doesn't get codes anymore, and he gave it an 8. Just reviews an 8. But here's the funny thing, right? And this is the thing I wanted to highlight. Its Metascore is still high. It's still at 87. Its Open Critic score, when you combine everything, is at an 88, right? This isn't a bad game at all, right? 7 isn't a bad score, right? 7 is a good to great score. Starfield's probably a great game. You're probably enjoying it right now. But according to some people, it's a good game, not a great game, right? So if this game was in the 90s, there would be, I guess, is there no discourse around it then? Does it have to be in the 90s for it to not have discourse? Because, like, that's the thing that I don't understand. Like Sea of Stars debut was like a 95, and it's fallen. Like, and look, Deathloop got a 10 from IGN. Did it get a 10 from IGN because it was on PlayStation? I couldn't stand Deathloop. I beat it. Did not like it at all. Right? Baldur's Gate. I'm loving that game. Right? But there's still parts of the game where I'm just like, man, that's a little frustrating. Or that didn't go my way. Right? And I get it, you know? Like, that happens in games. But what I just don't understand is why, like, we think it's okay. And if you go and look on his actual thing, and you look at the replies that he's talking to people to, like, he's had to, like, go, hey, I gotta leave this conversation. Professionalism is a two-way street. Disrespecting people freely doesn't fly in this business. Tell me more about this business. I've been in for 20 years, and who are you again? And that's the thing, is, like, he's had to be salty towards people. Like, and it's just really, really sad. So, like, Bethesda actually included this in-game for Starfield snowflakes. Attention to detail is cool. This is definitely perfect for Dan Stapleton, for most of the Sony ponies. Yeah, dude, thanks for this. Real cool. All he did was a review. I really didn't think the console wars existed until I saw the shit people have been saying in Cheers. Like, I know that he's gotten death threats. I think he said something along those lines. I know that when Stella from IGN put out her initial thoughts on what she was expecting of Starfield, people went to her profile and just dogged on her profile. It's literally crazy. Like, I just absolutely don't understand. But here we go. By the way, why did you mention God of War, Last of Us, and Starfield? The Starfield scope is much bigger. It should not be expected to have the same level of graphics. You do mention that this is in line with other RPGs, so why mention two relevant games, right? God of War and Last of Us, because they have really good motion captured facial animation. If I said the facial animation in Starfield was good, as I did, without that context, people would have been mad, because when compared to other games like those, it's not. That's 100%, right? We don't expect Starfield to have the same amount of detail that you would expect out of a God of War or Last of Us. But there's another open world game out there called Horizon Forbidden West, which I'm not really a fan of yet. I don't know. I played the first one. I enjoyed the first one. The first one was like an 8 out of 10. But, like, man, like, it's just crazy. Proper maps, 8. Improvised management, 9. Stop thinking about this as math. 7's a good, great, and then amazing. 100%. 9's an amazing game. Starfield is a great game. If you enjoy it, that's awesome. My question is there are people, there are people that I just don't understand, that if you're enjoying the game, go play it. Instead, it's just been absolute bomb after bomb of people going after Dan, and he's the director of reviews. So my question is so everyone's like, oh, somebody else should have reviewed it. So you gotta think about, if you're the director of reviews, you are in charge of reviews, so you are technically the supervisor, right? And if somebody else on your team, outside of a Dustin Legary, outside of a Ryan McCaffrey, right, because that's an Xbox driven team, so of course the Xbox fans want the Xbox person to review the game. I want somebody to review the game who may not have a bias towards it, right? Or may not be, or who may be a fan of Bethesda games, right? Which Dan's clearly been a fan of Bethesda games in the past. And everyone wants to bring up he dresses like Kratos. Dude's bald and's got a beard. Who's else he's supposed to dress up in video games? Like come on. Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. And we see the discourse surrounding this. Like, you kind of have to think about it in a way of, if I have somebody else on my team and they're going to review a game, and trust me, he's probably not the only one in that office who has a copy of the game, right? They all probably talked about it, right? And I guarantee you they have, and I guarantee you the whole course is, it's like, hey, if we believe collectively together what this game says is a 7, because he's not the only person that thought it was a 7. Michael Hyam thought it was a 7 from GameSpot as well. If he's not the only person in the office who collectively thinks it's a 7, you know, like, I'm trying to understand where, or I'm trying to let you understand that, like, it's almost like maybe he took a bullet, so to speak, right? He took the proverbial, like, look, you're going to get trashed online if you review this game no matter what you do. So I'm going to review it. If it's great, I'm going to give it a great score. If it's good, I'm going to give it a good score. If it's amazing, I'll give it an amazing score. But I don't want... This game is going to have so much discourse around it that I don't want you to see or be caught up in the whirlwind about that. Because let's be honest, right? If you give it a 9 or a 10, you're going to have PlayStation fanboys going, "Oh my God, you're lying. Oh, you know, this game isn't that good," or anything like that. And then you have the Xbox, you know, fans who just rub it in PlayStation guy's face. If you give it an 8, you're probably left alone, honestly, because you're not saying it's amazing. You're saying it's great. And then, but the 7, because it's the lowest hanging fruit, essentially, there on one of the most popular video game websites in the world, you are now viciously attacked by Xbox fanboys because you were used by PlayStation fanboys for ammunition to tell them that the game that they've been looking forward to sucks. But what gets lost in this, the whole thing, is the Xbox fanboys, Bethesda fanboys, PlayStation fanboys, right? What gets lost in the whole conversation is that these are just someone's opinion. That's all they are. Open critic. These are people's opinions. There are people that have played Baldur's Gate and don't like it. There are people that have played Sea of Stars and don't like it. I don't like Deathloop. I love God of War. Loved Elden Ring. Couldn't get into Plague Tale. Spider-Man Miles Morales, 85, I think, is a perfect score for it. Returnal, I really, really enjoy it when I get back into it. 86, sure. Why not? I think that's, I think that's pretty fair. I just, at the end of the day, I don't get the discourse around a score as long as you think the game is good. There are games that I love, like to death, that probably don't have great scores, right? But guess what? I still enjoyed them. Still really do. So I don't understand the discourse when it comes to that. So, guys, hey, thank you for paying attention to this video. If you stayed and listened to, diatribe or whatever for the last half hour, just kind of diving into these reviews, I really appreciate that. If you can, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think, right? Am I right? Am I wrong? Does Dan deserve to be fired from IGN, as some of these people say? Does IGN deserve to be burned off the face of the map? Burned down, as some of these people claim? Obviously not. But what are your opinions on how reviews should be handled? Should somebody else reviewed it at IGN? What would have happened if that person gave it a 7? Would we still have the same backlash? Why isn't GameSpot being held into the same scrutiny from Xbox fanboys? Is it just because it's IGN versus GameSpot? Is that the big deal? So make sure you leave that kind of stuff in the comments. But other than that, thank you guys. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And you have an awesome, awesome day.